Okay, thank you everybody for joining. As always, before we really get into it, just let me know in the comments here that the sound is okay, that you hear everything okay, and then we'll get going. Slight delay, so stand by until I get your responses. Okay, by the way, all of that time, that's the delay between when I say something and when you hear it. So it's like a solid 20 seconds of just torture for me before I actually know if any of this stuff actually works. Not a big tech person, but you know, make it work. Okay, thank you for joining. I know that there are a lot of people here, not only from the U.S. but from across the world. Okay, some people are asking me to make it a little bit louder. This should help a little bit. Let's also bump up that gain. Okay, sound should be good now. If at any point you need me to make it louder or anything, just let me know and I'll make it happen. Cool. So we have we're here for day one of our primetime January 6th committee hearings. This is what we've been waiting for dear God, way longer than we should have, but this committee has been working. You know, I've interviewed Jamie Raskin a bunch of times. They've been working, interviewing over 1,000 people, looking at tens and tens and tens of thousands of documents. And so Jamie Raskin himself said that this event is going to blow the roof off the House. I feel like if you're going to say something like that, you got to be pretty sure that an event like this is going to blow the roof off the House. I feel like that's not just something that you say if you're on the fence about it, because that's really not lowering expectations. That's putting them pretty high. So I feel like if you're going to say something like that, you have something worthy of that kind of expectation setting. So with that said, let's talk about some of what we can expect. First of all, I just want to, I know, you know, Republicans have been kind of falling over themselves today to kind of do what they've done from the start, which is undermine the entire point of this investigation and starting with the big lie. I think that it's worth reminding people, because I'm a fan of repetition now. I know that sometimes for people who watch my videos will hear me repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. It's weird for me to do it. I'm sure it's weird for you if you're a regular listener to hear it, but I think this repetition is so important because the right has a monopoly on repeating their slogans until they are seared into people's memories, until they wake up as a drone repeating this stuff like build the wall and make America great again. It works. There is a reason that they repeat this shit over and over and over again. It's because it works. And so I think that there is something to be said for repeating this stuff on our side if it's the truth. So let's talk about their rebuttals of the big lie. First of all, I know that Republicans will have you believe that the big lie is some like Democratic hoax. There is no evidence of fraud. There was no evidence of fraud ever presented about the 2020 election. The 2020 election was a free and fair election. It was a legitimate election. They brought this forward in more than 60 court cases, including, I believe, 8 judges who Trump himself appointed. Never at any point did they find even a modicum of evidence of fraud. They brought it forward to Republican secretaries of state. Again, none of whom found any evidence of fraud. They brought this up in recounts and audits. They did recounts and audits of a number of states, a number of contested states. At no point did any of those counts have a different outcome than any of the original counts. So they claim that, you know, the election was stolen from Trump, and yet at no point was any of this stuff ever proven. Not in the courts, not by any of these elected officials who had, from both parties, by the way, and I believe that we're going to see Brad Raffensperger come and testify for this committee. I'm not sure if it'll be tonight, but at some point over these hearings, we will hear Brad Raffensperger come and testify. So that was a new update as of today. Now, not only do we have no evidence of fraud, but on the flip side, we do have evidence of Trump trying to steal this thing. Like I said, we have Brad Raffensperger's call with Donald Trump where he said outright, can you just find 11,780 votes? That right there would be enough to like accomplish whatever we're trying to accomplish here, which is to show that it was actually this guy who was trying to rig the election to steal it for his own purposes. telling this Georgia Secretary of State to find one more vote than the amount that he currently lost by. He also invited state legislators to the White House. I believe he had the Speaker of the Michigan State House come to the White House. Again, all part of this like plot in broad daylight to kind of convince them to send an alternate slate of electors. We have obviously everybody trying to pressure Mike Pence into unilaterally deciding the outcome. If a vice president after the first term could just decide unilaterally who won the next election, why would any first-term president ever lose? If that's all it took, like, I mean, it's just so like, it's so outside the realm of common sense. Why this would ever be a thing? Anyway, Mike Pence's role obviously was solely perfunctory. He had no role other than just reading what's on the paper and saying it out loud, and that's it. Mike Pence's role was perfunctory. He has no ability, nor does any vice president, nor does any single person to, decide the outcome of the election just because he's the vice president. And then, of course, we have John Eastman's 3 easy steps on how to do a coup. He had his memo that was circulated explaining how to do this. They have PowerPoints that they made, like it's a fourth grade classroom, including one by Phil Waldron. And that was to brief members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, and it called on Trump to use the National Guard to seize voting machines. And again, all of this stuff is in broad daylight. I know that I guess they're under the impression that if you do these things in broad daylight, it loses its illegality. It's no longer illegal if you just do it in broad daylight. If you stab somebody when it's sunny out in a crowded mall, it's just not illegal anymore, because like those are the things that you have to do under the cloak of darkness. And so long as you give like a general feeling of like, yeah, we're doing this out in the open, it can't be illegal. Otherwise, why would we do it? It's still illegal even if you do it in broad daylight. Having these PowerPoints, having these memos, having these calls from Mike Pence to just unilaterally decide the winner of the election, having this call with Brad Raffensperger, which you gotta know was not only being recorded on the White House's side, but also Brad Raffensperger's side. He's no dummy. The President of the United States calls you in the middle of his coup attempt to get you to overturn the results of a free and fair election. You probably want to record it. At least he had that much wherewithal to do that. Beyond that, there was also the fact that none of these Republicans who are coming forward now and saying that the election was stolen, trying to lend credence to the big lie, none of them actually believed it. I'm going to read you some text messages that the January 6th committee got from Mark Meadows' phone on January 6th. So these are the people who are publicly out here claiming that, you know what, the election, I do believe that the election might have been rigged to some degree. I do believe that there were some irregularities about this election. Here's what they were texting Mark Meadows while the insurrection was underway. These are Republican members of Congress. Hey Mark, protesters are literally storming the Capitol, breaking windows and doors, rushing in. Is Trump gonna say something? We are under siege here at the Capitol. We are all helpless. There's an armed standoff at the House chamber door. Those were Republican members of Congress. Now we have Trump administration officials texting Mark Meadows. POTUS has to come out firmly and tell the protesters to dissipate. Someone is going to get killed. Mark, he needs to stop this now. Tell them to go home. POTUS needs to calm this shit down. Those were Trump administration officials to Mark Meadows, who was then the chief of staff. Then we have Fox News host Laura Ingraham texted, "Hey Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy." Laura Ingraham. Brian Kilmeade said, "Please get him on TV, destroying everything you have accomplished." Sean Hannity, "Can he make a statement? Ask people to leave the Capitol." Then we have Don Jr., which I think is so funny that Don Jr. has to text Mark Meadows to get a message to his father, but I'm sure he really loves him. He's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough. He went on to say, "We need an Oval address. He has to lead now. It has gone too far and gotten out of hand." That was Don Jr. So explain to me, if all of these people thought it was Antifa, thought that Trump had nothing to do with it, didn't believe that Trump had actually incited this insurrection, then why reach out to Mark Meadows to send these messages to Donald Trump. If these people had nothing to do with Trump, why would they listen to him? What would they have to do with Donald Trump? Why would they want Trump to denounce it if he had nothing to do with it? Or if these people were Antifa, why would they listen to him if they weren't summoned by him? It's because they were summoned by him. They clearly knew in their private text messages, they conceded that these people were summoned by him. And so that's why they opted to reach out directly to this guy, because they knew that these people, these insurrectionists, are only going to listen to one person. It's Donald Trump. That's why they were all texting Mark Meadows to relay their messages to Trump, because this had Trump's fingerprints all over it. They weren't texting the head of Antifa. There is no head of Antifa. But if there was, they still wouldn't text the head of Antifa, because clearly these people, when push came to shove, when it wasn't bullshitting for the cameras, knew that this is all Trump, only Trump. This also, this hearing, I think the point of this hearing isn't just about the events of January 6th, although I think that we're going to find out much more about January 6th regardless. I know that a lot of people are worried, and this was a question that I had too, is like, is it worth it to do an event like this, a hearing like this, when most people already know? I mean, like, we are, or a lot of us who are like plugged into this stuff are well aware of what happened on January 6th. I live streamed that day. I mean, it's the most documented event in like modern American history, mostly because all of these idiots went into the Capitol with their phones, giving the FBI everything they need to then go arrest them afterwards. But nobody ever accused them of being too smart. But we know a lot of what happened, and so it's like, well, whose minds are we really going to change by this? But there are two things here. First of all, I think that there is going to be a lot more that we don't know. That's gleaning from Jamie Raskin's statements. Also, like, we've seen a lot of drip over the past few weeks, and I think just the fact, or few months rather, I think just the fact that there is all of that new information that came out. I mean, this was a fraction of what these people have. So I have no doubt that they're going to have a ton more information that they'll be able to share. But it's not just about new information on January 6th. I don't know that, that's actually the point of this. I think this isn't just about what happened in the past. It's about preventing it from happening in the future. This is about like making sure that moving forward this can't happen again, because if we're just going to sit here and like demand accountability, well, it's going to take, first of all, it's going to take half the government to concede that there needs to be accountability anyway, or a DOJ, which Congress can't influence one way or the other what Merrick Garland is going to do. But this is about making sure that for the future we shore all of this stuff up, because January 6th wasn't a one-off, it was a blueprint, right? A lot of the problems that Republicans encountered in their journey to help Trump overturn that last election have been solved by them. They've fixed a lot of the problems. They're in Georgia, for example. They've passed a law, I believe it was part of SB 202. I believe that was SB 202 in Georgia. All of the voter suppression laws just kind of meld in together. In Georgia, they passed a law allowing Republicans to take over local elections boards, and they've taken over a number of local elections boards in Georgia, including some of which are now headed by people who were election deniers in the first place. They've run election deniers in a number of swing states for a number of positions, including Secretary of State in states like Michigan and Arizona. These are critical swing states. Now they have election deniers, people who will, over their dead body, allow a Democrat to have any victory that they get. Of course, right now we have Congress working to fix the issue of states being able to send alternate slates of electors. I know that there's like that small group of bipartisan senators. It's Susan Collins, I believe, Lisa Murkowski, Joe Manchin, the people exactly who you think it is, that small group of people. But I don't believe that it's 10 Republicans working on that. I think it's just a group of like 6 or 7 senators who are working on that bill. Is the Republican Senate going to be willing to vote for a bill like that shores up closes some of these loopholes that these Republicans were trying to trying to exploit by virtue of sending their alternate slates of electors. I don't know. I don't know if a Republican Senate is going to do that. Like, I think the thing here is not to hope for some Republican epiphany, because there won't be one. They aren't going to suddenly embrace democracy, because the fact is that they can't win in a purely democratic system. This is a shrinking party. They're too white, too old, too Christian, too conservative, too extreme. Like, think about their positions. Their positions on guns is that even in the face of these daily mass shootings, is to have more guns, is to pass laws like permitless open carry, is to reduce or eliminate age limits for any of these weapons. It's to have a proliferation of more AR-15s on the street. It's to arm more teachers and arm more cashiers and more priests and rabbis and whatever it is. It is just pouring more guns onto the streets. That is not a tenable position in a country where 90% of Americans want common sense gun safety reforms, like passing universal background checks, or 70-80% support, like passing a federal red flag law. That's not a tenable position. You look at their position on abortion. I mean, 70% of Americans support Roe as it currently stands. And yet this party has done everything that it can since day one for decades now. It's been the law of the land for 50 years, for decades, trying to undermine Roe. And now you have a party that's advocating for zero abortion whatsoever in any state, even in cases of rape or incest. Like, if you have a Republican now who even dares to say that they should have an exception for rape and incest, it's like a rhino position. It's like a soft position. It's like, well, at least we have a moderate. Thank God we've got a moderate somewhere. If somebody thinks that if you get raped, not carrying your rapist baby to term is a necessity, that's their position on abortion. You look at healthcare. This is a party that's voted over 70 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which gave tens of millions more people healthcare in this country. I mean, Democrats won 41 seats in the House in 2018 just on protecting the ACA. That's how out of touch that party is with the reality of what people want. Healthcare, abortion, guns, like any position across the board, voting rights. Forget about voting rights. Again, all of these positions have the vast majority of support across the country from people on both sides of the aisle. You look at the elements of Build Back Better, and I'll talk about the elements of Build Back Better in a little bit, but you look at the individual elements of Build Back Better. All of them were overwhelmingly popular. Republicans wouldn't get behind any of it, even allowing the government to negotiate lower drug prices. All that we are the only country who does that. All that means is that single-payer healthcare, universal healthcare, Medicare for all, it's the same thing. It means that there is one payer, one entity that negotiates with these drug companies to bring the price down. That entity would be the U.S. government on behalf of 330 million Americans. It's a win-win for us. There is no downside to allowing the government to be the single payer that negotiates down prices for these drugs, so that they would be in line, on par with what the rest of the world pays for drugs. They wouldn't even vote for that. They wouldn't even support that. We can't even get that. And so, like, my question would be, do you think that a party that's seeking broad support is going to back no abortions in cases of rape or incest? Like, no. This is election subversion, and these extrajudicial efforts to, like, overturn the election is their strategy. It is their platform. That's it. That's the whole platform now. It's not a byproduct. It's not a bug. It is a feature. This is the whole thing. They've put all of their cards in this election subversion basket. And so they have to go all in, because they won't win without gerrymandering. They won't win without voter suppression. They won't win without allowing Republicans to overtake these local elections boards. So the idea that they're going to give that up or have integrity is just completely upside down. It is fatally flawed, because the only way that they're going to win moving forward with a shrinking minority of people in this country is to change the rules. You can't have these positions of like we want unlimited guns pouring into the streets and into our schools and into our hospitals, and we want everyone to be armed. We want this thing to be the Wild Wild West, and expect to win any plurality of votes, any majority of votes. Like, that's not a majoritarian position in this country. You can't have a position where you don't think anybody should have health care, any Medicaid expansion, even Medicare expansion, even Social Security, and expect that to be a popular position in this country, a winning position in this country. You can't say that we don't think any woman should be able to have an abortion, even though three-quarters of women in this country believe that they should be able to have that right, and expect to win a majority of Americans in this country. None of their positions comport with this idea that they're even trying to win a majority of votes in this country. The only thing that they're relying on, the only consistency, the only thing that allows them to win, given what their positions are, is going to be to undermine the election. That's it. So this idea that they're going to be all right, we're done. We're not going to gerrymander anymore. We're going to we get it. We have to protect democracy too. It's backwards, because the only way that they stay in power, their only hope, given what their platform is, given what they've shown their platform is to subvert these elections. So this when Biden was first taking office, he kept saying this thing Republicans are going to have an epiphany. They're not. The epiphany here needs to be that this is the whole game. And if we don't recognize that it's not going to get better from here, it's going to get worse, and they're going to keep digging in their heels, and that this is the whole party, and that Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney are the exception to the rule, if we don't recognize that, then we're just burying our heads in the sand for no reason. This is hurting us if we don't recognize this. So what do? First of all, we fight. We acknowledge these things and we fight them. We stop pretending that Mitch McConnell is a good guy or that they're going to have some epiphany, because they're not. They're all on board with this, because they're not here to defend democracy. They're here to defend their own stake in power. That's it. That's their goal in government. They want to be in power. They're not defenders of democracy. They're not here to argue about a level playing field, and then they'll argue about the tax rate or healthcare proposals. They're here to win it all. They want power. That's it. They don't care how they get it, but there's one way to get it. It is to cheat. It's to subvert the election results. It's to install their people into power who can then say whoa, too many black people voted here today. I don't know, maybe we want to undo these election results. Maybe we just send an alternate slate of electors. You know what's funny about that too is we just had this past election, the primary elections, and there wasn't a single Republican who came out and said voter fraud. And yet, those same people who accepted these results, because those results were intra-party, and so it was just Republicans against Republicans, those same people are going to be whoa, we're taking way too long to count those votes, even though the state legislatures don't let you count the votes until all the election day results are in on purpose. You can say, it's taking way too long to count these votes. I think there's a chicanery happening here. It's performance. It's a performance. It is performative outrage. None of it's real. It is all lending itself to this one Republican effort to just steal the election results. That's it. To rig the election results. To sow doubt. That's what the big lie was born out of. So that's the number one thing. We stop pretending that these people are reasonable. I'm sorry. I don't want to hear that Mitch McConnell is a reasonable guy. I just don't. I don't give a shit. That's the bottom of my priority list, is to hear that Mitch McConnell is a reasonable guy because he deigns to acknowledge some random errant objective realities. These people are all if Mitch McConnell was a reasonable guy, you know what he would have done? He would have voted to convict Donald Trump at his last impeachment trial, instead of voting to acquit him and then standing up for 10 minutes and grandstanding about how Trump was responsible for the January 6th insurrection. You don't get to have it both ways, and yet, we have some of these leaders in the Democratic Party who are just insistent upon lavishing praise on this guy, who will then turn around and just completely shit on them every chance he gets. This is not somebody who Mitch McConnell is not somebody who supports norms and traditions. This is a guy who held the Supreme Court seat open for an entire year so that he could shoehorn Gorsuch in. This is somebody who respects traditions. I'm so tired of paying deference to these people who won't even come close to returning the favor for Democrats. So I think first and foremost, you find people who are willing to fight and stop finding people who are willing to compromise. I know we do with what we have right now, But like, man. The second thing I think is most important is to hammer these messages home that are actually going to resonate with people. And for me, you know, it might vary depending on like who you talk to, but I think that those messages are guns on these mass shootings, that we're seeing these daily rampages every day. You know, watching 19 kids get slaughtered in an elementary school, I think, is an untenable position. And seeing it happen over and over and over again, not just in schools, but in grocery stores, in churches, in parking lots, at concerts, in synagogues, at nightclubs. There is nowhere in the United States that is perfectly safe. I mean, hell, like there was some Republican who came out the other day and was like, we need to secure these buildings like we do for airports and Capitol buildings. Capitol buildings, we had an entire insurrection like a year ago. The Capitol building's not secure. Even like the most secure places in this country are not secure. We don't have an infrastructure built out for 400 million guns. It's just insane to think that. And it's ironic too that like you might notice that all of these A-rated NRA Republicans, all of their solutions miraculously involve buying more guns, which you would imagine, correctly, is the first, second, and third priority of the gun lobby that funds their re-election campaigns. Isn't it interesting that arming all the teachers means buying hundreds of thousands of more guns to give to all the teachers in schools? And then you say, well, it's not just schools. What are you going to do about grocery stores? Well, then you give guns to the managers and the clerks. Well, that's convenient too, that thousands more people are going to get armed with guns. Well, not just clerks. What about if you're at a concert? What about if you're at church? What about if you're at the grocery store? What about if you're like anywhere you go? The answer is just always more guns, which always miraculously seems to benefit the gun lobby, which is then funding their re-election campaigns. In just 2022 alone, just this cycle, which is only 3/4 of the way done, they've already given $1 million to Republicans. They've given $12,000 to Democrats too. I think 4 Democrats have taken $12,000 from the gun lobby, but $1 million, $971,000 to Republicans. 204 Republicans have gotten this money. If you're wondering why they're doing that bidding, it's because they were bought off by the gun lobby. That's it. This isn't rocket science. $971,000 among 204 members is on average just under $5,000 a member. That's what it costs. That's what it costs to buy out these people. It costs just under $5,000 to get these people to see a mass shooting in which 19 kids, 8, 9, 10-year-olds are slaughtered. Some of them like beyond recognition. And to say, you know what we need? Amid this mass shooting where some kid was able to get his hands on a gun same day, as soon as he turned 18, AR-15, plenty of rounds, is more guns, more people. We are the only country in the world where this happens, in the United States. They try to blame, oh, well, it can't possibly be the guns. It has to be mental health issues. It has to be video games. It has to be godlessness. It has to be fatherlessness. It has to be pornography. As if we have a monopoly on any of that. Like, I know people are watching from overseas. You want to tell me that doors haven't made their way to the UK yet? You want to tell me that doors haven't made their way to Scotland? You want to tell me that porn hasn't made its way to Canada, and yet miraculously, none of you people are contending with daily mass shootings? It's the guns. It's the guns, and we're kidding ourselves if we're going to claim that it's anything other than the guns. So anyway, back to my initial point, is hammer home the messages that resonate with people. I think that guns is one of those issues because I don't think any American, any reasonable American, left, right, or center, thinks that the answer to this is just more guns flooding the streets. So I think you hammer home that message that we've introduced bills, for example, common sense bills, H.R. 8, Universal Background Checks Act. Republicans don't vote for it. Just this, I believe it was this morning, a federal red flag law. 201 Republicans voted against it. I think we had 4 Republicans vote for it. 201 Republicans voted against a red flag law. A red flag law is specifically people who recognize friends, family, coworkers who recognize that somebody in their circle poses a specific threat. People who know this person, and they can temporarily restrict them from getting their hands on a weapon. You would think if someone specifically says, and they'll investigate it. It's not just like, okay, that guy over there, and then boom, he can't have a gun. They'll investigate it. They'll do their jobs. But man, if you can't even concede that a law where people who know someone specifically poses a threat should be passed in this country, then you are just so far off the extreme. You are actively helping the next mass shooting happen. So guns. The next issue is women's reproductive rights. It is abortion. Again, this is an issue that 70% of Americans agree with. Here's the thing. Like, I know that politics as usual is gas prices, immigration, migrant caravans, inflation. Like, that's the regular stuff that we contend with every election cycle. I think now these are finally things because they've shoehorned these issues in front and center, because Republicans have shoehorned these issues front and center. We're now dealing with issues like, as if there's anybody in this country who isn't touched by these mass shootings. Like, I know people are watching out there, like parents are watching out there who are worried to send their kids to school. And it's not just at schools. You know, the Buffalo shooting was at a grocery store. The Pulse nightclub at a nightclub. Las Vegas was a concert in a parking lot. What are you going to do? How do you defend from something like that? What are you going to close out any event where there's buildings on the side of you? Like, it's all just so untenable. You can't go anywhere without the prospect of something like this happening. It touches everybody. You can't say the same about migrant caravans. I'm sorry, it's just not the same. It's like screaming about migrant caravans while you're sitting in your bedroom in Michigan. It's just not the same. But these shootings happen everywhere. Same with reproductive rights, like women's reproductive rights and abortion rights. This is an issue that impacts everybody. You think that if you're in one of these states and, 15-year-old daughter gets pregnant, you don't want to have the option, the choice to get an abortion if you want one, or to take the Plan B pill, or to order mail-in contraception? Have none of these choices? You think that's not an issue that like regular suburban moms are going to be animated by? I do. I mean, we've seen the polling on it. This isn't popular. This is appealing to like 20 to 30% of Americans who think that abortion should be completely restricted in this country. This is going back 50 years. Give me a break. And the last issue is the one that we're going to focus on today, which is the issue of democracy. I mean, that's foundational, right? That's the voting rights issue that I had spoken about earlier. I mean, that I think is the most important issue, because we can't get anything done if we're not going to focus on that foundational issue of shoring up our democracy. So that's where, this January 6th hearing is so important, because I think it shows like the unique threat that these Republicans, that we face at the hands of these Republicans, who are proving, if they're gonna stage a coup and then almost like completely and with the exception of like Kinzinger and Cheney, but like back the guy who incited that coup, this is not a party that has any interest in maintaining democracy. So again, like, that's not to say that I don't understand the issues that are plaguing us, like high gas prices and the high inflation. I mean, these are issues that people are dealing with across the planet. Again, I know people are watching from abroad. You're all dealing with higher prices. You're all dealing with inflation. You're all dealing with higher gas prices. I would ask, like, did Biden raise the gas prices in Southeast Asia too? Did he raise the gas prices in Europe? Did he raise the gas prices in South America? In fact, our recovery in the United States is leagues faster than just about the rest of the world. We have a 3.5% unemployment rate, 3.5% unemployment rate. It's the tightest labor market in 50 years. It matches in 15 months of Biden's first term. It's matching the all-time low for Trump's 4 years, 3.6%. Granted, me saying that it's happening everywhere doesn't change the fact that people are still hurting. That's why it's one of the most important issues. That's why inflation is one of the most important issues. Gas prices is one of the more important issues. So with that said, what can we do? Okay, well, we pass legislation to help ease the burden of these high prices. That's all we can do, right? Because until we continue raising the interest rates, which the Fed is dealing with, and bringing the inflationary pressures back down, all we can do, from the government's point of view, is just take steps to lower costs. And so what have Democrats done? Well, they've introduced bills to lower prescription drug prices. Republicans have blocked it. They introduced bills making childcare free. Republicans blocked it. Universal pre-K, which is free pre-K. Republicans blocked it. Paid family leave. Republicans blocked it. Free community college. Republicans blocked it. Hearing aids for seniors. Republicans blocked it. Those would all cut costs. Republicans voted against All of it. So when you say like, okay, we're contending with the issue of high gas prices right now, and Americans are paying way too much, it's like, well, Biden can't just like go out there and lower the sign on that ticker. So what can you do? If people are spending too much money, you just help them where you can, which is lowering prices. And yet at the same time, Republicans are blocking all of those efforts to lower prices. Look at the issue of high gas prices itself. Democrats proposed a bill that would stop price gouging at the pump, considering the top 5 oil companies took in profits of $35 billion just this quarter. Annualized, that is $140 billion for these oil companies. What did the Republican Party do? They voted against it. A bill stopping price gouging at the pump. And yet at the same time, they come out almost on a daily basis. You've got Jim Jordan just parroting himself like a parakeet about how gas prices are so high. And yet that guy voted no. And why do they do it? Because they know that there's a closed loop ecosystem where they don't, they can do one thing and say something completely different. No one's going to fact check them on Newsmax or OAN or Fox News. No one's going to be like, while this guy's railing against high gas prices, why'd you vote against that bill that would actually stop price gouging? What about the issue of another one that comes up a lot is the issue of baby formula. Same exact thing. Democrats proposed a bill that would address the shortage of baby formula with $28 million. Republicans voted against that too. So they want these problems so that they can campaign off them. This way, they'll wail about high prices and inflation and baby formula on a daily basis, but instead of lifting a finger to actually solve these issues, then they try their hardest instead to just ensure that nothing passes so that they don't miss out on a talking point as we head into midterms. And what's worse about that is that they know that these are serious issues because they talk about it so frequently. So they know, they have that understanding that not having enough baby formula, that high gas prices, that inflation are all hurting people. But then if you're going to turn around and refuse to vote for the solutions and entrench those problems, that's just the epitome of hypocrisy and evil. Because people are hurting. You've said it. We all know You're on TV saying it on a daily basis, but then you're stopping those people from getting their relief because hurting Americans, hurting Joe Biden is more important than helping Americans. So knowing that, what do? I'll say this 150 times a day. The number one thing is we vote and make sure that people are engaged. And I refuse to surrender to this idea that we have no agency here, that, this is a midterm cycle. In the midterms, the party out of power always does better in a midterm cycle. I refuse to surrender to that idea because, like I said before, the issues that we're contending with right now aren't the regular issue. This isn't like your run-of-the-mill election where it's like, okay, September's rolling around and we've got migrant caravans coming in. This is, do you want your daughter or your classmates or your neighbors to be able to get an abortion? Do you want them to be able to have autonomy over their own bodies in the United States of America, in half the states in this country? Do you think that that's important? 70% of Americans do. So this is a foundational issue that isn't migrant caravans or gas prices. What about the issue of guns? These shootings are going to keep happening until there's some common sense steps taken to address them. If Republicans are voted back into office, they're not going to stop. They're going to do nothing because their campaign donations from the NRA, their average $5,000 a cycle, is more important than stopping any of these shootings from happening. This is the cost of doing business for them. And voting rights itself. So, you look at these issues, these aren't your regular issues. These are, so I know everybody, and I may be completely naive, and I may be eating my words by sitting here and trying to have some modicum of optimism about this election, but I refuse to believe that, people are going to say, well, gave them a try last time, I'll just give the Republicans a try this time. And if it means that we'll have our bodily autonomy stripped from us, that women won't have any reproductive rights, that we'll have more of a proliferation of guns pouring into this country, so be it. Gave the Democrats a try last time. I just don't think that's going to happen. So we vote. And, I know that a lot of people watching here are in the States. My best advice for people that feel helpless amid all this stuff, there's 2 things that I would say to do. First of all, find your small group of people. We all have some group of people that didn't vote in the last election. I do, even doing what I do on a daily basis, I still have family members, I have friends who don't give a shit about politics, and you couldn't get them to vote if you tried. Find those people who didn't vote last time and let them know what's at stake. This isn't, they might say like, oh, politics doesn't impact my life. Do they know anybody who, anybody who doesn't want to go to any of these places and get shot? Do they want somebody that, do they want any of these like gun issues to be resolved? Do they want any of these women's reproductive health issues to be resolved? Do they think that women shouldn't have the right to choose what they do with their own bodies? This impacts everybody. And the other thing is, of course, I have my fund, the Don't Be a Mitch Fund. If you're looking to donate to something, you don't know what to donate to, that is all voter registration in about 11 states. I think we've raised $950,000 to voter registration groups. It doesn't go to candidates. I didn't choose specific candidates for this thing to go to because I don't want this money to go to TV ads and all the other bullshit that campaign donations go to. That's not to say that it's not important, but I think more important is getting these money to make sure that people are registered to vote, so that they're prepared, so that when people finally do start paying attention in September or October, it's not too late. And they're not saying like, okay, well, now that I'm finally paying attention to politics and I recognize what the stakes are, if only I was registered to vote. So that's the thought process behind all of that. With that said, I know some people are asking when the hearings start. They start in about 25 minutes. So 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. So we're about 25 minutes out. In the meantime, I'll try to answer some questions if anybody has them. I know we've gone over a lot of stuff and I've spoken for a long time at you. So if you have questions, just let me know. I'll try to answer them. And thank you. I see some people have donated. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. That really makes a difference, and I appreciate it. So again, some people are asking when the hearings start. 8 o'clock Eastern. So in about 25 minutes, the hearings will begin. Somebody complimented me for looking dapper. Thank you. I'm the only idiot who decided at the beginning of the pandemic that my outfit would be a suit. And so here I am at home wearing a suit. Everybody else gets to wear a t-shirt and a hoodie. So, a lot of people have mentioned, including John here, to get rid of the filibuster. That needs to be our top priority. I think I just want to focus on something for a quick minute, and then I'm going to get to questions. So I'm gonna pause these questions. Don't ask any more questions because I'm gonna get to them in just a moment, and then I don't want to miss everything. I know a lot of people are saying the Democrats have power right now. Why vote for a party that has full control of Washington and yet isn't exercising any power? They're the ones in charge. But the fact is that we have the filibuster intact right now. With the filibuster, we need 60 senators in the Senate to pass any legislation. We don't have that. We have 50 plus a tiebreaker in Kamala Harris. We need 2 more Democratic senators that are willing to eliminate the filibuster, which I believe is every Democrat running this cycle. So we have John Fetterman in Pennsylvania. We have Tim Ryan in Ohio. Sherry Beasley in North Carolina. You know, if we get 2 more senators who are willing to eliminate the filibuster, then we can undermine the will of Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, bring that limit down to 50, and then everything that's passing through the House right now, all these red flag laws, the Women's Health Protection Act, H.R. 8, the Universal Background Checks Act, all of those will actually be able to pass the Senate. So it's not for lack of trying, it's the fact that we have 2 Democratic senators who aren't willing to eliminate the filibuster, and so we're just in this graveyard in the Senate where all of these bills just languish there and eventually die. So to claim that Democrats have full control is ignoring the fact that we don't. While the filibuster is intact, we don't have any control in the Senate, and the Senate is a vital part of passing any legislation. We need to be able to get this stuff through the Senate. So we don't have full control. We need 2 more senators to be able to eliminate the filibuster. That's why you go out and vote. What we've been able to do now is not like, there has been a ton of lost time, and I will forever, for the rest of my life, blame Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin for that. I think that, you know, the opportunities that have been missed because of them are just, you know, countless, really, and I think that they'll go down as doing irreparable harm to American democracy. But I think the important thing right now is just to acknowledge the fact that, we were able to stave off a lot of terrible effects of having Republicans in charge. I mean, look what Republicans are able to do now, not even being in power. Look what a Republican court is able to do by undermining Roe and allowing these, the Supreme Court is largely expected to gut the Clean Air Act. They're largely expected to gut laws that prevent people in New York and California from buying semi-automatic weapons. So there is a lot to be said for what we've been able to stave off, but we need 2 more Democratic senators. So not all is lost, and we have to remember the fact that Democrats don't have full control. This wasn't a complete failure of Democratic Congress as if we had carte blanche and didn't do anything with it. There are rules that we need 52 Democrats to be able to eliminate this filibuster now. That's what I wanted to say about the filibuster. Okay, someone asked if blue cheese or ranch with buffalo wings, choose. Neither. I hate condiments. That's like, I hate condiments. I don't think I've never eaten ketchup in my entire life. If somebody gets a condiment onto any of my food, I'll probably throw it away. The thought of ranch is the grossest thing I could possibly think of, and I think blue cheese is actually mold. So that's my thoughts on that. Okay, you can ask questions again. I'm gonna go through and answer these questions now. Someone asked if this is going to be uploaded publicly to my channel after the stream is over. Yes, this will be on my stream in the live stream playlist, so you can watch back. We have about 19 minutes until we can expect this to begin, so bear with me. Are my clothes tailored? My suits are tailored, yes. It's the only things I wear every day. I had to make sure that was done right. I love that I'm doing this whole live stream about the threats to democracy, and I'm like, I won't eat blue cheese. Should I try to get people to vote who I know will vote for Republicans? I mean, here's what I would try to do. I would try to get people to recognize the stakes in this election. If that's what I would do. I have friends who vote Republican. I would just make sure that they know the stakes for this election. Again, being a Republican and being a MAGA person who thinks that the only thing that you're going for is Donald Trump has some errant synapse that fires in his brain, and so that becomes your raison d'etre. That's not somebody who I would be hey, make sure you don't make sure, can I drive you to the polls? But if there's a regular Republican, a Mitt Romney Republican, Adam Kinzinger Republican, these aren't people who should support this party anyway. So just make sure that they know what's at stake. Do we know how many hearings are planned? I'm not positive. I believe we have 3 confirmed dates right now. I think that the next one is on the 13th. Let me just try to check. So we have today, then we have Monday and Wednesday, the 13th and the 15th. They believe that there could be as many as 8 in total and a final hearing in September. That's what we have so far. I've heard that we could have one primetime now, and then the final one would be primetime as well. I think that the other ones on Monday and Wednesday, are going to be 10 a.m. Eastern, which is super fun because I live in California, and I was just thinking I would love to have to already be live streaming by 7 a.m. I was just thinking that, so that actually works out perfectly. Thank you, by the way. I see people are still donating. I really appreciate it. Somebody asked what boom this is. A company called Frameworks. They do great work. I love this boom mic. Can Democrats win seats in both chambers historically? Democrats, they won right now. So, but yes, I mean, 20 years ago, we had, actually before that, when I believe it was Obama's first term in 2008, we had close to 60 Democrats in the Senate. they were different kinds of Democrats. They were Democrats that came from all these red states, and so they were just as conservative as today's Republicans. But yes, I mean, we can. Here's the thing. We have a Democratic senator in a place like Pennsylvania. We have a Democratic senator in a place like Wisconsin, where Democrats have won 10 out of the last 11 statewide races. So yes, I mean, like, in theory, if we can hold on to the seats that we have now in the House and the Senate, yeah, we could of course hold both chambers. It's just a matter of whether they can do it, while being dragged down by a low approval rating by Biden and high prices and whatnot. But Republicans aren't making it easy on themselves by advocating for all of these, like, draconian laws. Why is it Bernie and Katie Porter seem to be the only ones who have a clear message? That's a good point. I mean, like, you have these people like Bernie Sanders who are relentlessly on message. Katie Porter, who's relentlessly on message. Even Chris Murphy. And it's just, I think it's a matter of a lot of these people are just there for so long and have, like, don't know how to talk to regular people. Katie Porter is like a mom, like a single mom who drives a minivan. I think she's excellent. And I think we need more people like that. This idea that we need to just, like, keep re-electing people into their, like, I mean, I know Bernie Sanders is an exception because that guy is as on message as anybody is. But this idea that we need to keep electing these, like, 75-year-old, like 80-year-old octogenarians to just who are good legislators, sure, but have no ability to communicate with regular people, is like a huge missed opportunity. And we need to elect young people. There's a reason that that Republicans hate AOC so much, is because she's an effective communicator. There's a reason they hate Katie Porter, why they don't go near Katie Porter, because she will tear them to shreds. That's what Katie Porter is capable of doing. That's why they don't touch her, because she's too good. That's what we need more of. What about helping people buy electric cars? That's a good point. I think Biden just announced a plan today that would add like 500,000 EV chargers across the country, which is huge. Somebody said my interview with Biden was better than Jimmy Kimmel's. I'll take it. I actually haven't even had a chance to watch the Kimmel-Biden interview yet. Okay, we're about 13 minutes out, by the way. Diana asked, will Trump go down for sedition? I like to think that he will. I mean, he should. I don't know what the DOJ is going to do. I don't know how strong or not strong, how strong or feckless they're going to be. That would be the charge. I spoke with Glenn Kirshner, who was a former federal prosecutor. I know that a lot of people on my channel follow his channel as well. I would recommend it. I just did an interview with Glenn Kirshner, and he laid out the charges exactly that Trump would face. It's just a matter of whether, the DOJ will have the balls to actually bring those charges up. But you'd imagine so. I mean, here's the thing. Either they do, and there's some modicum of accountability, or they don't, and they're basically just saying that this kind of stuff is acceptable. So, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, do one of those, like, Robert Mueller is gonna vindicate us. It's going to be Mueller swooping in with his, cape. I'm not going to say the same thing about Merrick Garland, because I don't know what's going to happen, but what should happen is right in front of us. I think that the January 6th committee is about to lay out exactly why this needs to happen, irrefutably. So, and it's a bipartisan committee. I think that anybody with half a brain can recognize that. So, whether Merrick Garland is going to pick up on that and actually hand down some type of charge for Trump remains to be seen. But I think what should be done is beyond clear. Yes, somebody mentioned pocket pardons. I asked Glenn about this in my interview with him as well. This idea that, like, what if Trump gave himself a pocket pardon? Does that come into effect? Does that kind of, like, insulate him from any impending charges? Glenn's take on this, which I think sounds like the kind of take I would adopt as well, is that, yeah, he most likely did give himself a pardon. The idea that Donald Trump, who would do anything on God's green earth to protect himself from all of the interminable crimes that he has, is and will commit, didn't give himself a get out of jail free card before he left office and just, like, give himself a pocket pardon, is kind of, like, divorced from reality. And so I would imagine that he did. Whether it insulates himself from illegal activity will be up to the courts to decide. So I anticipate that we will see, yes, him pull out some pocket pardon and say, I'm good, I'm clear, you can't touch me now. And that something like that will have to be litigated in the courts. You can throw questions into the chat here as well, and I'll try to get to them. We have 10 minutes until showtime now. 10 minutes. Oh, by the way, I should ask now, while we're 10 minutes out, if you're not yet following my channel, please subscribe to my channel. It's free. Just looking for, just hit the subscribe button. I do daily breaking news videos, just 5 minutes a day. That's what my average video is, about 5-6 minutes, usually one video a day. So if you like don't have A, the time, or B, the desire to watch like news on a 24-hour news cycle and just want like 5 minutes on what's going on that day, subscribe to this channel, do these breaking news videos occasionally. On big moments like this, I'll live stream and I'll do interviews on a weekly basis as well. If you're not familiar with my interviews, I've interviewed everyone from just most recently, President Biden, interviewed Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Katie Porter, Pelosi, Schumer, Tim Ryan, Pramila Jayapal, like I've gotten a lot of people. So if you want to see these weekly interviews, if you want to see my daily breaking news videos and my weekly podcast, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. That is like the single best way to support my work. So thank you. Okay, Biden needs to fire Garland. Your thoughts? I think we see what happens. I think if we don't see something soon, I mean, Biden's not going to fire Garland. First of all, I thought that it shouldn't be Garland from the beginning because I thought he was too judicial, like too judge-like, because he's a judge. I thought it should be Sally Yates because I think that she has the ability to like go after these people. Let's see what he does. Let's see what Biden does. Let's see what Garland does, rather. I think, right now is kind of crunch time, so we'll see if these charges actually come forward or not. But let me just get this ready here. So as soon as this starts, in about 8 minutes, we'll be good to go. Volume is low because there's really nothing happening right now. But I'll make sure that the volume is good once people start coming in. Yeah, there's nothing happening in that room, so the volume is going to be super low. Garland, I think, has been a disappointment thus far. Who knows what's going to happen in the coming days or weeks if we do see these indictments get handed down. I think that once we have an answer as to what happens, then we'll be able to make our decisions. This shit takes a long time, and it is beyond frustrating. God knows that I am losing my mind over it, but I guess we have no choice right now but to be patient, and then we can make our decisions from there. Why is Fox suddenly deciding to stream the January 6th committee? I don't know if they are. Are they? Can you guys let me know in the comments if Fox is streaming the January 6th committee? Because I believe that 8 o'clock is like Tucker Carlson's time slot. The idea that he's going to stream that committee, other than just to like be in the corner and make faces like the whole time, is just kind of laughable, since they've been like one of the principal purveyors of this disinformation that actually led to the January 6th insurrection in the first place. I believe they repeated the big lie something like 800 times in the immediate aftermath of the election. So I'm sure they would love nothing more than to be able to like control the narrative. But honestly, they probably just recognize that if they're not going to air the hearing, that people are going to go elsewhere, and it's all about money and eyes for them. Also, this way, if it's on their own network, they can at least control the narrative, and they can have Tucker Carlson break in every 3 minutes and say, like, I'm just asking questions. How could that possibly be? We have so many migrants pouring into this country. I'm just asking questions.
Live witnesses that you'll hear from tonight. Nick Quested,
so,
filmmaker who was embedded.
Yeah, people are saying that YouTube is showing Fox carrying it live. Some people are saying they're not. Fox Business was supposed to, not Fox News. I think they would be shocked. I think if you had the January 6th hearing, I think these people would be shocked. They'd be like, why would there be a hearing? There was no insurrection. These people have been fed such bullshit about January 6th that I think they would be like, why are they holding a hearing? What's there to hold a hearing about? I heard it was a dust-up. That's what some, like, I think the Washington Commanders coach came out, who's like this diehard Republican, and called it a dust-up. I looked at his page. He's got, like, all he does is quote tweet, like, Tim Pool and all of these, like, Republican provocateurs. This is the owner of the Washington Commanders, called it a dust-up. Of course, like, these people are so predictable. They're like, oh yeah, that was the, you know what the real crime of the century was? The BLM protest, where zero people died. But the Capitol riot, insurrection, where they tried to overthrow the U.S. government, it's a dust-up. We are less than 5 minutes away. Less than 5 minutes away. Jack Del Rio, that's right. Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate that. Jack Del Rio, dear God. TLDR so far is this hearing is starting in 3 minutes. We should expect to find out a lot more that we didn't know from, you know, from the reporting on January 6th thus far, but it's going to be twofold. It's going to be to let us know what happened on January 6th, who was responsible, who was involved in the planning, who paid for all this stuff, everything that we don't know thus far, because, you know, a lot of this stuff has already come out during the impeachment hearing and just in the regular news. So we should expect a lot of that, and we should also expect instances of why this is important not to let it happen again in the future. I think that's like, this threat isn't behind us. It's like Trump is the presumptive nominee for 2024 already. A lot of Republicans are running on Trumpism. They're working as hard as they can in the states to make sure that they can resolve a lot of the problems that they faced last time in terms of overturning those election results. So yeah, I think both of those will be important.
Download it for free wherever you
Okay, we are
get
2 minutes out.
And you can watch the hearing in its
2 minutes out. Hopefully optimistic, but not naive, Arvin says, and I think that's a good outlook on this. We are 2 minutes out. Again, if you've not yet subscribed to my channel, the single best way to support me and like my work is to just subscribe. That's it. You don't have to join, although I do have membership, and that's appreciated as well. But just subscribing is more than enough. I appreciate it. And thank you to the moderators in here. Benny Loco, you're doing a great job. I appreciate it. Thank you to my moderators. Okay, we are airing dangerously close. Can you do any more debates with right-wingers? I would like to. I've tried to do another one with Tommy Lahren, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I've done 2 debates with Tommy Lahren so far, and now it's miraculously not happening anymore. I don't know why that is. Thank you. I know people are saying that they're just subscribing now. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate it. So let's go to a different screen here. You guys can all hear the closed caption says, the indiscernible chatter, right? Just let me know, drop me a line and let me know that you can hear the indiscernible chatter. And thank you, James, for joining. I appreciate it.
In 2 minutes. But as a reminder, we want to let you know.
All right, I'm gonna mute him because he's hijacking my talking time, and I've already told you guys this stuff anyway. We've got 3 hearings scheduled so far. We've got tonight, we've got Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we've got Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So if you're on the West Coast like me, join me at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm not a morning person or a condiment person. I think that's like the biggest takeaways from this so far. So far, all we found was that I've never eaten ketchup, and
you can download it for free wherever
Okay.
you get your apps.
Now we have Benny Johnson coming in and the rest of the January 6th committee members. And let's get this thing started. Again, one last note, if you've not yet subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. That is the single best way to support what I do. And I promise I won't bother you during this hearing. Wow, it's hard not to be furious all over again. To be furious all over again. We've seen this stuff. We've seen so many images like this before. I mean, I live streamed on January 6th. We've watched a lot of this stuff during Trump's impeachment trial. But there's this ability to just see new video like this, especially video that just kind of confronts all of these Trumpian conspiracy theories that like law enforcement was in on it when these people were so obviously, clearly contending with this stuff, just as we knew that they were contending with it, because they weren't involved in any of this. That was just some bullshit excuse that was put forward by the MAGA people to give them cover. Just like this idea that they were Antifa. These people are waving Trump flags, waving MAGA flags, saying they would put their lives down for Donald Trump, reading his tweets, repeating his phrases. But to see these law enforcement officials and Capitol police officers just like dealing with this stuff, contending with it as it's happening, being pushed back, declaring it a riot, like the idea that these people were in on it, or that they wanted it to happen, or that they were like in cahoots with these insurrectionists is asinine. What an insane thing to say. I'm sorry, but just like watching these people, they're not, the idea that these people are patriots and not savages and not monsters is crazy. And every single one of them deserves to rot in prison. Like, you have the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Matt Gaetzes walking around and saying these are political prisoners, as if we didn't just see the video of what they've done. It really goes to show like the extent to which they will manipulate reality, distort reality to like fit into this neat little box of whatever they want their narrative to be. It's hard not to be like livid, but I can tell you one thing, it probably did start off slow. Seeing those images, seeing all of those senior Trump administration officials, military generals, even Ivanka herself, say right out the gate that they knew there was no fraud in this election just sets the stage perfectly for us to understand that Trump was well aware that he lost this election. He was well aware that there was no fraud, and yet he decided to push the big lie anyway. I mean, it was really well done for them to start off this entire thing with these videos from these depositions showing these Trump administration officials, these senior Trump administration officials who acknowledged, who admitted that they told the guy there was no way he can win, A, and that there was no fraud in this election, B. You have Bill Barr calling it bullshit. You have Ivanka Trump saying that she respects Bill Barr's position, laying the foundation right off the bat that everything that followed with regards to like what the big lie was and bringing all these people to the Capitol, having them bust through because of this idea that the election was stolen from him, it was all completely baseless. We know that right off the bat because the January 6th committee, to their credit, was smart enough to recognize that if we lay these facts down right now, right at the top, then we prove that everything that preceded that moment in this hearing will be shown to just be complete bullshit because Trump knew, and all the people surrounding Trump knew. They told him there was no fraud. Barr said it was bullshit. Ivanka knew that Bill Barr was correct. General Milley knew that it was correct. He knew that even Mike Pence was interested in getting help for these Capitol police officers. And yet when the Trump people came in, they did nothing. It was just a bunch of political grandstanding. Here's a quote by Liz Cheney that I think is especially telling. Quote, "Not only did President Trump refuse to tell the mob to leave the Capitol, he placed no call to any element of the U.S. government to instruct that the Capitol be defended. No call." And you've got these Republicans out there saying that Nancy Pelosi is somehow responsible for not protecting the Capitol. You think Nancy Pelosi has the jurisdiction of the U.S. National Guard? It's the president. And he made no call to any National Guard or any law enforcement outfit in the U.S. government. Oh, it's hard not to get like so viscerally angry over this stuff. It's hard because for two reasons. Like, one, because of obviously what happened, but like the way that Republicans have been able to try to rewrite since the day after the impeachment trial, when this stuff kind of went off the air, the way they've been trying to rewrite history on a daily basis, calling these people political prisoners. These people are actually savages, actually monsters. The idea that these people are patriots is so backwards, so ass backwards. I don't know what their prison sentences look like, but they deserve every second that they are rotting in prison. Here's my politically correct observation of this stuff. Anyway, I think there was some worry at the beginning of this that it would be like, that it would be boring, right? I think showing this video, these people know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly why they're laying the facts out in the order in which they're laying them out. Like I said, I mean, just brilliantly, right off the bat, to show these clips from those depositions where the Trump people themselves admitted in their depositions that what he was doing was completely baseless, that Donald Trump himself was told there was no fraud, that the election was over, that there was no way he could win. It shows that everything he did subsequently, meaning the events of January 6th, his speech at the Capitol, was all complete bullshit. That's what that showed. He pushed that big lie anyway, knowing that it was bullshit. He has no plausible deniability. Any plausible deniability that he might have been able to lean on was decimated within the first 10 minutes of this hearing, when he has Trump administration officials, in their own words, coming out and saying irrefutably that there was no fraud, that he lost the election. I mean, it was a very smart way of them to do it, but man, it is hard not to be livid while watching this stuff. Thank you, Fading One, for the donation as well. Thank you, people who, those of you who've donated. I appreciate it. As we wait, we have a couple more minutes before this starts up again. I believe maybe just 2 or 3 minutes. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. I would appreciate it. That is the single best way to support my work. I just post like 1 video a day. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. Okay, I believe we're about 2 minutes out. But so far, a really compelling testimony. Really compelling video evidence from these people, from these depositions. Especially effective to have these people speak in their own words from these taped depositions. That, I think, is the best tool that they could use. I mean, having these Trump administration officials themselves, Bill Barr himself, Ivanka Trump herself. So we're only moments away from coming back in. Thank you again to people who've continued to donate. I appreciate it, and I'm seeing them all. I wish I could respond to them individually. And kudos to Liz Cheney too. We agree on nothing politically. Nothing politically, but good on her for doing this. This is going to be all of her reputation right here, because this is really all that matters. This is foundational, right? Okay, it looks like we're going to have some witness testimony coming up in just a few moments. And thank you for those of you watching. I know that there are a lot of options on YouTube and TV to watch, so thank you. All right, and we're back in. Okay, so that was the end of the first one of these primetime hearings. So first of all, I think like the number one thing that like stands out right here is it is so hard not to be completely livid rewatching all of this stuff. And I was worried even going into this, and I've had interviews with people where I've spoken to them and said like, what are we going to learn from this hearing that we don't already know? But there's clearly so much we don't know. Even just listening to the police chatter throughout this entire process, Whereas, you know, the right-wing folks, the MAGA folks have pushed forward this conspiracy theory that maybe law enforcement was in on it. I mean, you have Capitol police officers who were slipping on people's blood, who were getting maced or God knows what sprayed into their eyes, who sought medical attention. You know, you had this latest witness here who was, you know, admitting outright, Carolyn Edwards, you know, she said, quote, "Officers on the ground, they were bleeding, they were throwing up. I was slipping on people's blood. It was carnage. It was chaos. I can't even describe what I saw." So this idea that those people were somehow in cahoots with these insurrectionists who were like subjecting themselves to this carnage is just complete denialism, complete rewriting of history. I think really what struck me too was, you know, this is a war zone that he created by virtue of these people coming forward. And they were there on Trump's orders. They admitted outright that they were there on Trump's orders. One of the quotes that one of these last insurrectionists said was, quote, "I was there because he called me to be there. He's only asked me for two things, for his vote and to be there on January 6th. They made perfectly clear, and I'm sure that we'll hear this line of, you know, this narrative way more in the subsequent hearings, the hearings that are going to follow. But this idea that, you know, Trump didn't bear any responsibility, these people from their own mouths admitted that the reason that they showed up is because Trump told them to. And this is something that I covered before as well. And I think that they did an especially effective job of showing right off the bat with these depositions that Trump was well aware that A, there was no fraud, and B, that he lost the election and that there was no recourse to lose the election. They showed these depositions, they showed videos from Bill Barr, from Ivanka, from General Milley, all of which they admitted on video that they'd spoken with the guy. They let him know what he was doing was, quote, bullshit. That's what Bill Barr said, that there was, Ivanka said that she respected Bill Barr's position and she believed him when he said that there was no fraud. So they established the fact that what Trump was doing was being done in complete defiance of objective reality, that he was well aware that all of the components of the big lie were complete bullshit, but he did it anyway. And so he did this stuff all knowing that he was defrauding the United States. And that's what this all comes down to. If the people surrounding him gave him objective facts that the election was over, that he lost, and that there was no fraud, and he sought to lie to his supporters, to incite this insurrection anyway, it is because he defrauded the United States. He was seeking to defraud the United States knowingly, and that's the most important thing, and they laid that out right off the bat. And I think that is so effective. And God knows that we're going to see a lot more of this in these coming hearings. We have another hearing on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern and Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So if you live in California like me, that's going to be fun to wake up at 6:30 in the morning. But I'll go to sleep with the suit on probably and just wake up and drag myself in front of the screen. So please, if you're not yet subscribed and want to check out that next hearing, please subscribe to my channel. You'll be notified. Otherwise, I do daily breaking videos every day. Otherwise, I think that this was an especially effective hearing. Let's see if we can listen into some of what they're saying right now.
In the next in the public hearings, Rosen or Cipollone?
Well, it's our hope that they will. Obviously, we're a nation of laws. Our committee follows the law. We'll invite anyone who has information that they think is important to our committee. We gladly will accept them. Any information we presented tonight, if there's someone who would come under oath to our committee with a different opinion, we welcome them.
But they haven't agreed, those individuals have not agreed?
Not at this point, not at this point.
Who's planning to testify in the next hearing?
Well, we have a hearing Monday, which will talk about some of the actions that went on with people to try to stop the election.
I'm sorry, when the chairman go there.
You'll know the network.
Okay, so that was Benny Thompson. I'll keep an ear out in case we have any other January 6th committee members, but I think the point is clear by now. There's Adam. I believe that was Adam Schiff walking out. I can't tell. Anyway, I think, like I said before, the January 6th committee was especially effective in doing what they needed to do, which was get right to the point of this stuff and lay out right off the bat. Because remember, a lot of people don't watch this stuff. A lot of people might have, they know what January 6th was because of Trump's second impeachment trial. But they might have not paid attention since, and it is so easy to just get infuriated all over again. But to watch this stuff is so important because it shows us the threat that we're facing with right now. A lot of what Republicans have done in the last few months is try to replace a lot of the elections officials who really were the last barrier to Trump getting what he wanted as a result of this election subversion scheme. They've worked to, they passed that law in Georgia that would allow local elections boards to be replaced by, where they had Democratic majorities to be replaced with Republican majorities, including some Republicans who were election deniers themselves. So, a lot of what was broken, quote unquote, is what they sought to fix this time around. So with that said, again, I'm gonna be live streaming all of these hearings as they come up. The next one's gonna be Monday. If you're not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It is free. I do daily breaking news videos every day, and you'll get a notification once I'm streaming this next one. So again, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. That is the single best way to support me. Also, keep an eye out because I know Monday and Wednesday, which are the days of the January 6th committee hearings for next week, those are also the days that the Supreme Court has announced that it'll be releasing some decisions. I know we're obviously waiting on the Roe decision, which is largely expected to be the overturning of Roe and a woman's right to a safe and legal abortion in the United States. There's a good chance that they're trying to, do I think that it's a complete coincidence that on the same 2 days next week of these major hearings, these arguably the biggest hearings that we've had in modern U.S. history, are the same 2 days that the Supreme Court chose to release their rulings on some of these highly controversial issues? I don't think so. So again, we're waiting on the ruling of Roe. We're waiting on a ruling on the Clean Air Act. So all of these Republican fever dreams. So we'll talk about that next week if we have any updates on those things. Otherwise, again, one last time, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button on this channel. And thank you for your donations. I appreciate those as well. I'll be back tomorrow with some breaking news stuff, and I've got some good interviews coming up this week with Fred Gutenberg, whose daughter was tragically killed in Parkland, and I've also got an interview with Dan Pfeiffer, who is Obama's communications director. So those are both coming up early next week. In the meantime, thank you again for choosing to watch this here. I know that there are a ton of options for where you guys can watch, so thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good night, get some sleep, and talk to you tomorrow.